Moff Gideon is about to return, and with that comes a host of problems for the Mandalorians. Get ready guys, because the real fight is now.
You're sparing my life. Well, this should be interesting.
But they could be about to take hits from both sides.
Moff Gideon was taken by Mandalorians?
We'll start off with how Moff Gideon's going to return, what's likely to happen once he does, and where we'll be left when all the dust settles. You see, since Moff Gideon and his crew were captured by the New Republic, the Mandalorians themselves haven't had their own threat. Yes, they've been involved in conflicts, but they've been other people's, Boba Fett's and Greef Karga's mostly, which was against the Pike Syndicate and the pirates respectively, but now they're focusing on reuniting all Mandalorians and retaking their homeworld, possibly even cashing in on a few favours from Boba and Greef Karga in the process. Their time since the Season 2 final has largely been about their own cultural development and revelations on the new age of Mandalore coming over the horizon. However, that doesn't mean the Empire's been asleep or their plans are over. In fact, far from. Instead, they've been operating in the shadows, some of which, like Elia Kane, as spies sewn deeply into the core of the New Republic, gaining valuable inside information to aid the Imperials, which likely resulted in them being able to extract Moff Gideon from the prison transport. And now that their leader is returning, it's time to get things back on track. Now, Moff Gideon has been the main antagonist since the first season of The Mandalorian, and not many people believe Season 2 was the last we've seen of him. The dogfight on Kalevala was the only indication of continued Imperial activity up until Chapter 21, which actually could serve as an indication on how much the Empire has actually grown since Season 2. And this all ties in, even back then, to Moff Gideon. You see, the Imperial remnants are still out there across the galaxy, scattered largely, like the Mandalorians. They're dysfunctional, and they're really not working together, they're more acting separately at this point in time. But they are aware of each other's presence. If we look at the incident on Kalevala, I think Gideon was already likely free at that point. At the time, we didn't know Gideon was free. We thought that could be something that would crop up in a later episode where we see him physically escape prison or someone comes to break him out. Now that we know he is already free, it makes total sense. Bo-Katan mentioned that the ties on her that day, there were too many of them to be your average warlord, or so she thought. Now, this is evidence that Gideon could actually be joining Imperial remnants up across the galaxy. Now, these are very much Mandalorian ways. You see, the Mandalorians want to reunite together and take back Mandalore. We know Gideon has some kind of fascination or potentially even a relationship with Mandalore itself or the Mandalorian people. Perhaps he's even a Mandalorian. It seems like a very Mandalorian mindset that he would then join up the remnants across the galaxy and try and take back control as a collective group. You see, the Empire views the galaxy very much as being theirs. Now, some have thought the episodes in Season 3 have been a little disjointed in terms of the story. At times, myself included, I'd admit that. I do think, however, it's all set to connect right now. The incident on Kalevala, Elia Kane on Coruscant, the Lambda shuttle prison transport being attacked, even the fragment of Beskar left behind from the ship is all connected and it's all leading to something. Carson Treva is hitting the nail on the head when he says that. If indeed it is a group of super commandos, as I believe myself, or something along them lines, that does indeed indicate that Gideon isn't finished with Mandalore or the Mandalorians. We do know he has some kind of fascination with the planet or the people, or even a connection, and I could go as far to say maybe he's even a Mandalorian himself. This could indicate a big development in Gideon's plans that Beskar was left behind. Kalevala is in the Mandalore system. Why are the Imperials there? Bo-Katan? Why? She doesn't even have the Darksaber anymore. Gideon already knows that. Why is he worrying about Bo-Katan when there's much bigger tasks at hand? Now, I think they could be actually scouting out Mandalore, the planet, but also the Mandalorian system for a potential takeover themselves to set it up as a new Imperial base. And if we think about it, this planet would literally be perfect for that. The adverse weather conditions make it tricky to navigate, and there's no radio contact to anyone outside that planet or that system, which could make it an ideal Imperial hiding place while they continue to rebuild and put plans into motion, even to mine Beskar, which they seem keen on using. Now, ships going past, Republic ships, likely wouldn't be able to reach down to the surface of Mandalore to detect what's going on down there. But what's more, if the theories turn out to be true and Gideon is in fact a Mandalorian, then the planet could also hold some kind of sentimental value to him as well. Now, with Bo now going out to the galaxy to try and reunite Mandalorians, looking for scattered and lost and exiled Mandalorians out there, which is very exciting, I think they'll eventually arrive on Mandalore when that's all said and done in numbers. there'll be a lot of them, only to be met by or closely followed behind the Imperial remnants, who are also looking to set up camp on Mandalore. Now, we know there is a big battle on the way through Lego set leaks and the rest of it, and I strongly believe that this is that battle. You see, despite being a planet that has been completely destroyed by the Empire, it's hardly habitable. There doesn't seem to be too much going on Mandalore, which leads me to think that if the Mandalorians do make their way back there, what's in store for them? It's not going to be an easy ride, and there wouldn't be much of a harder ride than going up against Imperial remnants, especially a Moff Gideon looking for revenge and seeing this as a major stepping stone in his plans to bring back the Empire. Now, this would actually be one of the rare occasions in Star Wars that we have no idea how this is going to play out. Yes, we know the First Order is coming, they're very much on the way. I think that's going to be hinted at more in these last couple of episodes, but we don't know how things are actually going to end with the Mandalorians or this particular Imperial remnant. You see, I think The Mandalorian Season 3 is really only the beginning of the bigger stories that are yet to be told, some of which will be the Ahsoka and the Skeleton Crew shows. They're really building it up to give it a solid foundation for where they launch the rest of it from. Depending on who wins, I think impacts how quickly this story progresses and what's coming next. You see, if the Mandalorians defeat the Imperial remnants yet again, it would prove that they're really no match for just a couple of them, or even a whole fleet of them, depending on how many turn up. I think it's then time, from a story perspective, to move on to the bigger picture out there in the galaxy, which looks set to be Grand Admiral Thrawn. Now, with Thrawn, he is of a higher command than Gideon, and his forces, his fleet, and what he's got in store is likely far more dangerous than what Gideon is capable of. And with the Mandalorians at this point back on Mandalore and united, then it's going to set up for an even bigger fight on the way, especially when you take into account Ahsoka Tano's interest in Thrawn and so many other characters. If the Imperials gain control on Mandalore, on the other hand, I'm sure many Mandalorians will die in the process, and then the rest of them will be forced to retreat to save what's left. Now, this would give me very much Revenge of the Sith or Empire Strikes Back kind of vibes. Hope still remains, but today is really not the day, and we'll see the Mandalorians try and rebuild and go for it again. Now, either scenario would make for a really interesting story, I think. With the Ahsoka series round the corner, however, and Thrawn said to be a part of it, I will say I have to think this season will end in a Mandalorian victory and the final defeat of Gideon. And then all eyes will be focused on the Ahsoka series, where we're set to get that bigger reveal, the real bad guy behind the mask. Who's your money on this season, the Imperials or the Mandos? Check out this video behind my reasoning for believing it's a variation of Super Commandos that extracted Gideon. We'll weigh up what clues we have against all the popular theories on who it could have been. Remember to leave a like if you enjoyed today's video. Let's aim for 400 this time out. Subscribe to catch more videos, as we're really getting into a busy time for Star Wars. This is the way.